Hello and welcome to How Would You Rate Your Pain? We will be exploring life, loss, love, and the power of resilience. I am Dr. Tiffany Bartell. Thank you for listening, and I can't wait to go on this journey with you. Well, hello and welcome to another episode of How Would You Rate Your Pain? I am Dr. Tiffany Bartell, and I'm here with...
I'm Jeana Oldham. I'm a practitioner of orthotics and prosthetics and a personal trainer of 17 years and a five-time national athlete, and I'm the host of the Abundance Formula podcast. So we're doing a collaboration today.
Yes, so we're both with Pop Media, and a shout out to Liam for connecting us. And I'm really excited because for a while I've wanted to talk about women's fitness and women's physical health. And, I'm 45 and your body changes so much, and health and fitness looks different at every stage. And I think, the world we live in doesn't really always kind of chart a path for that. And so I'm really excited for us to talk today.
Yeah, I can't wait. I'm so excited. Definitely topics that I'm passionate about, and I know that both our audiences will benefit from hearing, hopefully.
Yeah. So I'd love to hear a little bit about what brought you into the work that you're doing now. You have several different layers of wellness that you're working with.
So the initial career path, of course, was becoming a practitioner in orthotics and prosthetics. And a lot of people know what prosthetics is, amputees. And so I build and design limbs for amputees, and then orthotics is kind of vast, from simple things like custom foot orthotics to spinal jackets for scoliosis to a lot of really involved things with orthotics. So I initially was pre-physical therapy, but then loved working at the depth it takes to work with amputees and other more involved. I especially love children. I'm a pediatric specialist where I work, so I just loved really being in the trenches with the patients, and then it's really neat to get to truly see from start to finish the outcomes. So that was always the kind of career path. Along the way in college, I became a personal trainer to kind of just pay my bills and work my way through school. And so I became a personal trainer, and pretty quickly after working at the university gym, I realized I could make a lot more money if I worked for myself. So I started my own little studio out of my dad's building where he had his business, and started out training training his employees for free, kind of as my rent for my space. And I called that corporate wellness. I ended up doing that for different companies too, and then training other clients. And I always thought that kind of work went well with this job of wanting to become a practitioner, because by the time I became a practitioner, I felt like I really became adept at tapping into people's why behind things and making sure that's strong enough to really get them from point A to point B, and learning to overcome obstacles that came up, which of course worked well for both professions. And so as I was doing that for many years, I really got excited more about the deeper work, because whether it's training or with different patients, and I have a lot of Paralympic friends that are medaled and all this stuff, so I have access to all these really great different stories. What I get passionate about is that inner work that really is what creates the outcome, because even with training, if someone's not reaching their goal, it's usually not because of the weights itself. It's why aren't they getting there? What's the really the deeper problem or the limiting belief? And so I really got passionate about personal development and how integral that was in people reaching their goals, whatever those are. And so I wanted to start talking about that more, but to bridge that gap with my audience from being kind of a fitness or health and wellness focus, I created the podcast called The Abundance Formula to sort of show how all these things work together. So kind of mind, body, soul, and purpose, because I also love talking about entrepreneurship and business. And so I was like, those are sort of our 4 categories. If those areas you're kind of focused and intentional in your health in those areas, then you can create this abundant life you're really looking for. And so when I have guests on, people like you or whatever, it's showing people there are breadcrumbs to create this success or this abundance you're looking for, whatever that means to you. And it's something that can be tapped into for anyone. It's not just for the exclusive few. It's really available to all of us. And here are some examples of how people are doing it, and they'll see the commonalities in there and the common thought processes. And then they can apply that to their own life and go create their own, dreams. So that's sort of how I've arrived at where we're at today.
Yeah, well, they marry so well together, because I think, what we have in common is we do the individual work. I'm a therapist, and so I love hearing stories. I love helping people, overcome those barriers to them thriving and living well and having well-being. And then, with the podcast, of course, we can't always tell our clients or patients individual stories because it's not ours to tell, and HIPAA and everything.
Right.
But But, I think the podcasting world gives that opportunity to show people what we see every day in, the other parts of our career. And I think that's so inspiring. But I think it's also that idea of common humanity where it's just common to struggle. It's common to get stuck. And so, sometimes we don't see a way out or no one's talking about it. So we don't know that like we're not the only one. And I think that, hearing stories of other people that we can identify with, like you said, find those themes, I think it's really encouraging and kind of destigmatize when you are in the middle of the struggle.
Right, for sure. And especially you get to listen to people like you. If people don't feel like they have access to a therapist to learn the ways out or learn a different way to look through a different lens, like those are huge breakthroughs for people to, if you're talking about different stories or just even you asking somebody questions, they might be like, oh, wow, I never thought about it that way, or triggering a response from the person that you're interviewing. I'm sure that makes a huge difference for people in their own journeys that maybe feel like you said, they're on their own or maybe they don't have access to the solution, but they do. And here's a great free way they can access some knowledge about that. So
I think it's just fun too to get to sit and like talk to people and learn about them and listen.
Oh, yeah.
And it's very inspiring for me. I think part of the work we do is for other people, and then part of it keeps us kind of aligned as well. At least that's how it is for me, in my work, because if I'm around people that are growing and doing the work, it really kind of keeps you accountable
right, yes.
to yourself to keep doing the work as well.
Yes. Yeah. The networking, the relationship building is huge. And especially if we're all happiest when we're growing, like you said. So when you meet new people that are at new levels that can challenge you and you can become friends and like keep in touch and make sure you're both still pursuing what you wanted to pursue or have accountability partners, or someone that can help someone else. It just feels good to meet other people on a same mission of growth, and you can connect each other to people that need each other and cheer each other on, which is great.
Oh yeah, the more the better. And we're gonna get into fitness in a minute, but one of the things that I did, I think it's like been 13 years now. I work really well under external pressure. Like peer pressure works great for me. And so I always try to kind of use that. So I wanted to I was running at the time and I wanted to get a little more accountability, and so I asked like 10 of my friends that I admire the most. They're really driven. A lot of them I call them my Romanians, because like, man, they just get stuff done. If they say they're going to do it, they do it. And so we got a group together, a texting group, and just said, what are our goals? And let's just text each other done every day when we exercise, and whatever you're doing in your sphere is fine. And when I lived in Idaho, we would get together, sometimes to do things as well. But it's been 13 years. I just got texts from like 4 of them this morning, and they were people that I didn't want to let down. And we all took Gretchen Rubin's motivational tendency quiz before, because it only works if you're externally motivated. Like if you're not, then you're just going to be annoyed. And so we had a few drop off because of that. But yeah, it's been 13 years. There's still, I think, 9 of us. And, that momentum that I know that my text helps create, and then getting that reminder from them too. It's such a little thing, but it's so helpful to me.
No, I think that's huge. And I think something big for people to hear from that is like, you have to try, like there's not just one way people are motivated. There's, I'm sure, and you could probably name all the actual technical ways, but like whether it's through positive or group interaction or whatever. And like you said, sometimes people in a group might feel pressured and that would be a negative thing, or some people might feel the pressure like, let's get it, So figuring out what works for you, and just if you don't know what works for you, try some things. Try starting a group text. And if you end up not liking it, then you can drop out of it and make sure everybody else knows that too. And try things, just see what works and what lights a fire in you, and then go for it. I think that's a big deal for people to know that there's just not one way. You might see certain ways featured most on Instagram or wherever, but there's other ways, and start looking those up. Take some quizzes, like just learn a little about yourself to then maybe get the follow through happening.
I love that. So I'd love to hear how because you mentioned you're also an athlete. What has your journey of fitness and physical health been like over the years?
So for me, I was always grew up in sports. My parents all played sports and were just always really active. And so I always was active and fit, but I had to learn how to do it through different phases of like, it's kind of easy in school when you're playing the sport, that was your exercise. Didn't have to curtail anything. I was eating because you're just, young,
burning
can
so
eat
much,
anything. And then I got into undergrad, and your schedule's getting a little busier. You got to figure out where it works. Like, was it early morning? Was it afternoon? How do you plug it in with the work schedule? I had to navigate some of that and find out where it worked best. The first time in college was probably the first time I ever really thought about my eating. And I think some of that was because at that point I was thinking about going to college on a basketball scholarship, but I decided not to do that because the person I was dating at the time didn't want me to go away. So I took a music scholarship instead. And so I needed an athletic outlet, something that felt like an athletic outlet. Yeah. And I had run into a trainer who told me I had a good physique to do like bodybuilding shows. And I didn't know at that time there was like different divisions for women. It wasn't just the true like bodybuilders. There was like bikini, which was like the smaller, more kind of what you see in the magazines. And there's some different layers. So he was like, you could compete in that and you don't have to change. And, you just start getting a little more regimen about how you eat or, work out and things like that. So it kind of gave me a pursuit. I just needed to feel like I had a higher pursuit along with everything else. Mm-hmm. And that's when I really learned a lot more about nutrition, and especially in wanting to build muscle. Like, I didn't realize I really wasn't eating enough calories like in college, or I was thinking about I was just looking at calories, not quality of the calories. And I needed more because my muscle needed more. Like, I just learned a lot more about fuel, recovery time, not over exercising, because especially in college, everybody's really over exercising or doing nothing. It's kind of one of the two. Mm-hmm. So I learned so much during that process. And that's really also where I learned the process of because people who compete at that level, with that kind of level of accountability, about to go on stage and, a little bikini, and you learn in a lot of those people that get on a journey like that are trying to develop something deeper in themselves. For a lot of the people that show up at those shows are having a hard time in life. And I was too at that time. And so was my mom. And so we both started doing that. And it was interesting how the gym, and specifically weight training, teaches you so much about, and I know we talked about this on the phone, like how do we strengthen women's confidence or their empowerment in a healing phase of life? And can that be done through, physical health or movement? And it definitely can, and specifically through weight training, because weight training, as opposed to like cardio, which is all about burning calories, lifting shifts your focus to what the body can do. And the expansion of your capacity to hold things and your resilience, or your ability, like shifts the focus from your appearance into your ability to handle challenges and overcome those challenges. So whether it's going to the weights and you start out with 5s and the next week, now you can do 8s. So that's it has tangible evidence to show you, I did that. I did a hard thing. Or maybe you didn't think you could do 5 more reps. And if you were the trainer, they pushed you and you did 5 reps and you didn't think you could do that. Now you're internally telling your brain, I can do things I didn't think I could do. Like, these are things that if you're in a healing place in your life, which we were at that time, you're really, lifting the limitations off your life by lifting in the gym and showing your brain the crossover of the resistance training of the gym is showing me I can hold the resistance I'm experiencing in my life too. So that's when I became
redefined, because it's portable, right? So if I can do more than I thought I could do in this area in the gym, I can probably do more than I think I can do in other areas.
And it's just kind of a great barrier of entry. Instead of thinking, oh my gosh, how am I going to navigate this difficulty in my marriage? It's like you're making these little micro wins in the gym, but the same lessons crossover. And as you know in what you do, like with neuroscience, like these are all subliminal messages that we're sending to our brain as we're lifting. Your brain is rewiring these limiting beliefs that you may have thought about yourself up to this point, of like that you can do hard things, that you can overcome challenges. And as you tangibly see these successes, you're basically doing a quiet undoing of these limiting beliefs about yourself, which is huge when you're in a state of healing. So I just became super passionate about competing because I loved the aspects of the thing to help me help my clients better. Because again, as I was navigating difficulty and seeing my ability to work through those, it became a really great outlet. So I've competed all over the years. I paused for a bit when I had kids. I competed last year though and did really well.
I saw that. It was
my
amazing.
My mom still competes. Like,
that's
it's something you just like to do because again, it just helps you. I'm always learning new things too. And I always like to train, even though I'm a trainer, I like to train with really high level coaches to keep learning as well. I trained with one of the best in our industry, like has tons of Olympians. And so I learned things from him. And so those are things that just get me really passionate about, especially health and how it links to us internally and what then we're able to do out in the world, because the same lessons cross over into anything you're doing, your career, your family life. And so that's kind of athletically, I've kept it up because it gave me an outlet, and now it's become just part of my like relief mechanism each day is to kind of start out with that. It's like my little anchor. Even if I'm not competing, it's sort of like getting me grounded. I usually do mine first thing in the morning now. It grounds me for the day. It's not about my appearance. It's more about like me being strong, right, and confident, like we've talked about before, the confidence it builds. So.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, because I think that, getting back to what you mentioned in the beginning, that why, if the why is, to look a certain way, what do you think that would do for you? If you looked that way, then how do you think you'd feel about yourself, or how do you think other people would feel about you? And so many times, if you get down to the root, the thing that you think it will produce, it's not going to change. Whatever pant size you're wearing isn't going to change the fact that you feel like you're only worthy at this size, or, whatever.
Right. And what's interesting, if when people really get into a fitness journey, one of the first things that I'll have, especially my women, do is just stop weighing on the scale. Yeah. Really. Because in my fitness journey, one thing I learned in competing was this, the look we all really want is actually to build muscle, which women are really freaked out about. But that's the tone. Yeah. When you say I want to be toned, that equals build muscle. And we're always freaked out. Like, but I promise you cannot, unless you're taking things, you will not be able to build enough mass to look manly. You won't be able to. So you don't have to worry. So as you're building muscle, that's the shape you're wanting. So interestingly enough, the first trainer I had for competing, she told me don't weigh, because I was at the time, I think like 112 or 116 or something. She's like, you will not be able to get to your goal if you look at the scale. She's like, because it's going to change in a way that you don't think. And so I didn't like have a lot of fat to lose or anything. So then after I had done a lot of competitions and done really well, then I was curious one summer, just because I was looking in the mirror. I wasn't like in the show kind of lean. I was just happy like for my off-season look. I was like, I wonder what this looks like out of curiosity on the scale. And it was like 135 pounds. Yeah. So it's like, if I would have been so stuck on, oh my gosh, I'm 112, or I should be 112, or I should, again, at that size, I'm sure I was in like a size 2 pants or something.
Sure. It's
like,
different.
I'm not in a size 2 pants now, and it's like, but I don't want to now, that doesn't matter to me at all. I'm just looking in the mirror. Am I happy? Do I feel good on a cellular level? But some of that stuff, it's hard to let go of because you just had it in your head for whatever reason.
This is the size I should be, or this is the weight I should be. And,
and so interestingly enough, that stuff, if you'd let it go so you can change and become what you want to become, it's interesting how it looks way different than you thought what that meant. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. If you're listening to How Would You Rate Your Pain, you're probably a person who understands the power of talking through the issues that we're going through. I'm really excited to let you know about BetterHelp, an online therapy platform. I'm not one of their therapists, but very thankful they sponsor this show. Wherever you are, BetterHelp will match you with a licensed therapist who can listen and help you through whatever you're going through. It's flexible and entirely online. Listeners of the show can get started with 10% off the first month by clicking the link in the show notes or by going to betterhelp.com/Tiffany Bartell. So many of my female clients really struggle with just self-loathing and shame around how their body looks. And they look at pictures and they look at magazines and they look at, movies, and they compare themselves to that, or they compare themselves to, high school, pre-kids, like all these different things. And I think that comparison is really tough because you're not comparing to anything real. Right. If you ask half of them, did you love your body when you were in high school? They didn't. Right. Yeah. They were comparing themselves then, and and many of them will say, oh, I thought I was fat then, but now I really am. And it's like, well, yeah, 5 years from now, if you didn't change anything in your life, you might look back and be like, oh, I should have been happier with myself then. And the only thing you can change is today. And so, and then I think too, when it comes to Hollywood and social media, so much of that's not real. Oh yeah. They're not real pictures. And you don't know the felt happiness and the felt well-being that somebody has. And so, I think it gets back to, what are we chasing and what's that thing that you're looking for? Because it's probably not, a picture of yourself that you would love. It's probably how you feel about yourself inside, and that's a little bit different.
Right, exactly. I think that gets down to, like you said, the root of things isn't really about, like you said, our brains. That's just proof to show you, and sometimes I'll post pictures like that on social media where I'll show people like picture in the past where I was super fit, and I'll tell people like at that time I thought I almost didn't wear this dress because I didn't know if I was thin enough to wear that dress.
Okay.
And yet I felt I was a self-confident person, but even me, like this is what I thought in this photo, and me looking at that now, I'm like, that's proof to tell you like you can't trust your own brain in that sense.
Absolutely.
Or even when I'm like about to be on stage for a fitness competition, I'll always still be able to be like, well, if I was a little leaner here, that might be better. And then I see photos, I'm like, how could I be any leaner? Like so when it comes down to your day-to-day, like you have to almost take this parenting objective to your own brain and be like, that's a lie.
Yeah.
Why are you telling yourself that lie? You look amazing. Like this, why are we lying to ourselves? Like you said, there's a deeper, like, why are we trying, what is this really disguising? Or what is this really a symptom of that's just choosing to take the form of body shaming ourselves? Because it's not usually the body, like you said, it can be any phase of our life, and maybe many years removed you look back and like, man, I really looked good. I wish I would have like got to enjoy that time. Yeah
I think what I've noticed in a lot of my clients, and probably myself too, is that there's certain things that are cues for us of like, when I'm overtired, when I'm stressed, when I'm feeling disconnected, when I'm feeling lonely, what's that like automatic thought or automatic fear that comes. And a lot of times it's that, fear of not belonging. And then, what have you told yourself makes you worthy or makes you lovable or makes you, people want to have you belong in their circle. And so, I wonder sometimes when we have like recurring, certain things that we loathe about ourselves or certain negative thoughts about ourselves, it's like, okay, if I was to step out with mindfulness and to say, what's the context of this coming up for me? And then what's actually, like we're talking about, underneath it, then I could probably get more done in the moment to kind of like comfort myself and challenge that than, being like, well, maybe I just need to like put on some shapewear or not go to this event or isolate myself or whatever.
Right. Yeah. And I think there was something that crossed my mind when you were talking. I think when it's a situation too where maybe we do want to shape up and we know we do need to shape up for health, like there are sometimes real like, okay, we do need to be in more shape again, but all the way along you're gonna always still want to be better, especially if you're a driven person. You're gonna always want to do better. But I think there's the balance of what people don't know, and having competed before, knowing what it's like to truly eat perfectly and to exercise as many days as it took, never miss a day, all the things. Like I was able to say, okay, and this is how I look that way, which is great. But I was able to objectively say, okay, so if this is really what it takes, I don't want to actually look this lean all the time because there's more I want to experience
in life.
I love that. And so it's a balance of people also having to, and I do this with clients that just want day-to-day fitness because they don't realize that, like you're saying, the picture they're showing you, the effort it takes for this, and what you're willing to put out, and what does this even really mean?
Right,
like, are the people that you're seeing that look that they actually like super happy with their life right now, or do they wish
actually also do they look like that?
Well, yeah, and do they even look like that? And if they do, like, is that where they actually are wanting to stay full time, or are they happy they're full time, or whatever? And to each their own.
Sure.
But when you start putting in, say, the effort to lose weight, then you can find as you start the journey of maybe you got to lose a little bit, but then there will be a maintenance mode where you just play in your happy place. But like in that, and I always talk to people about this as far as the pace, it's usually the pace. Like, okay, say you need to lose 20 pounds. People want to do it fast. I'm like, but that's not how you'll keep those results.
Right.
That's people don't realize what a crash course diet really looks like. They think it's 0 calories, but really they think, but it's a lot. It's like people are, again, there's so many examples, but they'll say like 900 calories they're eating. I'm like, that's too little. Like that's too little. And then you're doing all this exercise and you're doing all the things. Like you may get to your goal, but you will not keep it. I can tell you that because you will bounce back. It's too much. Like you need to be happier with slower progress,
sustainable,
that can work in your true life. You get to have the birthday party, or you get to have Valentine's Day, or enjoy your Mother's Day, or whatever the thing is. And you're being intentional. You're planning for those free days, I'll call them, and then you're being intentional to keep the workout days. I mean, you work it into your flow of life. And I'll tell people too, other people might be working out 5 days a week because they love it. If you don't love it, if you can do 3 consistently, do 3. Like what works in your lifestyle, whatever you can do consistently is what will get you to your goal. And then just be happy with the slower pace. You will get there if you're being consistent. But the slower pace will make it be something you can actually love the journey, enjoy it.
It's not self-punishing.
No, and keep the results when you get there. So then when you get there, not only do you see your transformation, but you're not like, wow, that was a miserable transformation to get here. Like it doesn't have to be miserable. Yeah. We want to end up with that empowering finish like we're talking about, like that you don't loathe the weight training or loathe the, physical movement, but find a way to incorporate it in a way that it works with your lifestyle and it becomes one of these base habits like waking up and showering does, and how you feel good after you get a shower, something like that. But it doesn't come through the super high expectation of like rep it out fast and think it's going to be enjoyable and that you can keep it.
Yeah, well, it's not going to contribit to your well-being if it's not done in a healthy way. So we talked about this before the interview, but I've been always active in my life, kind of like you. I think I started like exercising regularly in 8th grade just because like it made me happy and I felt good. And obviously that's changed, through college and everything, 2 kids. But I always had some kind of activity, going on in my life. I started running in my 30s and that was really fun. But I remember, I think it was so I've had endometriosis, my whole life. And I think it was 2022, I had my hysterectomy. And before that, I had like passing out at work spells and just different things that were kind of complicated in there and like related to like a vasovagal response. And so I think it was like around there that like I started to like not feel in my body. Like I was just like, this feels like it's against me. I don't know what it's going to do to me. I don't know, what is happening. And especially with endometriosis, like you just feel like there's so much going on that is against you and is out of your control. And so that surgery was a big one. It was a partial. So just the I kept my ovaries, but even so, the recovery was very long. And of course, I'm a crazy person. So I was back trying to record videos for an outreach program I was doing. I was back seeing clients, like just crazy. And I was in my PhD program at the time. And so I think I had it in June. And then October, the first week of October, I was like, okay, I feel a little bit normal again. But I was so afraid to like exercise, and I was doing little things, and I didn't know how to trust my body again, and it kind of hobbled through. And then in the last year, started with a personal trainer Joe. I tried to get him on the show, but he's shy.
Yeah, that happens.
Yeah. But I went in for my first evaluation or whatever, and I just knew I needed somebody outside of myself to like map it out, because there's so many projects. I think we're the same. We always have our finger in a lot of different pies. And I had so many projects going on, so many things I was excited about, but I didn't want to have to figure out and map in this area of life. It just I didn't have the capacity for it. And so my first session with him, he was just like trying me out to see what I could do. And long story short, ended up like in the back of the building on a stoop outside with my head between my knees, sweating and almost throwing up. And he was having me like drink a Sprite because I hadn't eaten breakfast. I just like rolled out of bed, ran in. I wasn't drinking enough water. And I mean, things we know, right? Like I'm an adult. I've raised 2 children to adulthood. I know to drink water, but wasn't getting enough protein, obviously wasn't, whatever. And so that wasn't the first time or the last time. It was the first time, but not the last time. I almost passed out during our training session. But man, I needed someone to show me how strong my body was, because I'd been active, but I hadn't ever been testing my limits, except for a little bit in running, but like, I wasn't really that, concerned about how fast I was. I was just, doing it to do races with my friends. And so, I think I really resonate with what you're saying about the weightlifting, or just even having some kind of plan where you are like pushing yourself and seeing what you can do. Because I didn't realize how much that would put me back in alignment and make me feel like reintegrated as a person in this body.
Right. And especially too, if you're having stressors in your life, it's truly a physical output of pent up energy inside, and some people, can let all that out through a good cry session, or some people like me, like weren't really raised that crying was okay necessarily. So I'm not a good crier. Like, it takes a lot to finally break that Watergate, but you'll still know that it needs to come out, but you can't make some of that stuff happen. So it's like, if you can physically go on that run, that's like I feel like you're almost sweating it out, sweating the daily stress out your pores, or like pushing it through those fibers you can truly output it so that you're lighter inside when you're done. And that's something that can be super helpful for just general health, or like you said, just kind of pushing yourself will make you get healthier in a way you didn't realize, not necessarily muscle size, but like, again, getting out, all of us have daily stressors. If you don't have a way to get that out of your body, at some point the pot will boil over in some form or fashion in your life, whether it's yelling at your kids or whatever.
Convenient time and place, usually.
So it's like, so you need some way, like I said, it doesn't have to be weight training, but some outlet that you get the physical energy out, the pressures out. I think that really lifts people's spirits and helps their mental health so much.
Yeah, and I think, one of the things, I'm pretty type A. I think we're similar in that too. And I like to do everything. Everything's a 10, or if I get it to a 12, it'll be a 12. Yeah. And so I think one thing I had to learn, and again, I'm middle-aged, I should know these things, maybe. Like, I tell my clients these things, but whatever. But the idea of, like, not every day will be a home run.
Right.
Like, for no apparent reason, you can go in and not be able to lift as much as you did the week before on the same exact exercise. It's just a day. Like, it's not indicative of anything. I mean, you could check it out and be like, hey, did I do my stuff to, like, resource myself? But, like, you just kind of have an off day every now and then, and you can't do it. And that concept was so foreign to me for myself. For everybody else, I've got so much, like, flexibility. But, like, for myself, I was just like, okay, but I drank my water, and I slept well last night, and I ate my protein, and I had breakfast. Like, why can't I do this thing? And Joe would be like, I mean, because it's a Tuesday, and like, your body's like, nah,
Yeah, exactly.
And the other thing that I've kind of put in, I've always done, some mindfulness work, but I've started doing regular yoga. So the strength training and the yoga together, that's really different than my running or, Pure Barre or, other types of things. And so, you can't go to yoga and have someone telling you for an hour multiple times a week to listen to your body and to accept, what it gives you and to thank it for what it's doing for them, like, without something shifting a little bit.
Yes.
And so, and maybe that's not for everybody, but, like, I think finding the thing that meets you in the place that you're at this time. Because I tell my clients all the time, there's 3 pillars of mental health. Sleep, so important. You can't have good mental health, and you can't be happy if you're not sleeping, fully. You can have it temporarily, but that well-being, you really need to sleep. And then nutrition, what you put in your body and when you put it in. I've had so many clients who eat like once a day and they're not happy for like 70% of their day. And it's like, well, yeah, because you're crashing and your body's under stress and you're still expecting it to, like, perform here. But then there's exercise. And I think, whether that's exercise or it's, for some people struggle with that word, movement, what are you doing for your body to help it to be strong, to help it to be activated, to build it so it can support you. And I think, it's so hard in today's world to get all 3 of those things. Right. It always feels like you're robbing Peter to pay Paul. So what's some of the advice that you have for your clients who, want to take care of their physical health, but they feel like they're tugged with kids and job and just all the other things?
Yeah. So I think the big thing is, like, having a plan. And again, you'll have to shift that plan. It may not work out the way you think it does, but, like, so if you notice, okay, I really do want to incorporate this in these areas or this into my life. And again, they don't have to be every day. Like, if you're saying, okay, I know I need to get good sleep, which would obviously be a daily thing. I know I need to get movement. What days will those be? And nutrition, what could that look like in my day? Yeah. And, take, if you got kids, maybe one day where someone can babysit them. So if you need that quiet time to just take a moment to focus and look at your calendar. And the best way in the planning, I can tell people to create the follow through is it has to be a big enough priority. So it's not that people don't have time. It's just not a big enough priority. Because if you were at work and they threw on an extra project and are like, this has to be done by the end of the day because we'll lose this contract with this company, I think you'll find a way to do it. Like, you might not like it. You'll be stressed, but it'll find a way into its time block. You might, it'll find a way in there. Or if something for our kids happens, like, you'll move mountains to make it happen. If they
Absolutely.
wanted to do XYZ, you're going to shift things, you're going to make it happen. So if you can create it like this time block, you know, in your day, that's like you would have an actual assignment or a project that's due for work, or picking your kid up from school, like something that's of that level of priority to you, which is attaching it to that why that you have. So look at everything and say, okay, so in the day, you know, here, and this is where it can be helpful to work with a trainer or someone if you need help with what food to eat, or there's so many free guides too. Even with the workouts, there's like really cheap apps or free apps that can give you workouts that can guide you from home. But looking at those things too, like if I want to work out, do I want to weight lift or do I want to do yoga? Figure out what things might excite you and start small. So don't try to do it 5 days a week. If you've been at 0, go once or twice, you know, and decide that though ahead of time so you can learn to keep promises to yourself. I'm going to go twice a week and I'm going to start with yoga. What days are yoga? You know, Monday and Wednesday. Okay, here's where that time block is. That's what I'm going to do first. And then as far as nutrition, I tell people to start small, because if you do too much, you won't stick to it.
It's such a temptation to just like sweep everything into the trash can. We're so black and white. Yeah. And then we're just hungry and we don't want to eat beans and rice every day. Yeah.
Because even with nutrition, I'll tell people, all right, so figure out where you can do one type of movement, you know, 3 days a week or whatever small thing you can do consistently. And if it's not 3, then do less, whatever, once a week. Just what can you do consistent to start? We can up it as you acclimate. And then nutrition, just start with water. A lot of people don't drink enough water. So let's figure out your water goal and just that's your only focus. I've had people lose 10 pounds just because they just focused on their water. Like, so it's just like water first, get really consistent with that. One form of movement, get consistent with that. And then sleep, you know, figure out when, you know, how to support yourself and when you need to go to sleep, and, you know, turning off some of the phones or the things that stimulate you before bed. How can you support yourself in sleep? And if you really think you have a clinical reason for not sleeping, you know, find those things out.
There's so much that you can do for sleep to remediate it.
Yeah, because I was going to ask you about your tips for other aspects of sleep for people. But the key thing with sleep too is once you start exercising, you will sleep better. And when you sleep better, you're going to get less cravings in the daytime.
Right.
Because a lot of people don't realize a lot of their cravings in the day are because they're not getting good sleep, and their body knows it needs energy. So they're going to crave the fast acting carbs and sugars to give them immediate energy, which will create a crash. But the body knows like that's something that's fast. It's not going to crave the sweet potato because that's slower digesting. It's going to want something fast.
Makes so much sense.
You know, and so they don't realize, okay, if the sleep's good, then you're going to have less cravings. So it's going to be easier to eat a healthy food plan in the day, which of course will also give you energy. And by exercising, you're going to create more cellular energy. You're going to get better aerobic, you know, capacity. So you're going to be less tired from the day just on a base like oxygen level. So the energy will start to increase with all of that. So just starting, and if you're hydrated, your cells have the energy to heal. And again, to provide the energy. People don't realize there's dehydrated, so you don't have energy. So all those things kind of work together, and that's why I usually start with those as the small baby steps. Hydration, and then like movement, however many days a week you can do it consistently, and then working on the sleep. And then once you've done that for maybe 4 weeks and you feel like it's more routine, then if you've been doing 2 days of movement, do 3. And then if you've been, you know, doing your water, if you know that you eat pretty unhealthy for 2 out of 3 meals in the day, then you know, make 1 healthy and then stick to your other 2, and like just start going in little baby steps, and it just helps you acclimate, and then you can keep those.
Well, then it becomes results. Like part of your lifestyle instead of like this thing you're doing to yourself, which is the difference between like lifestyle and diets, right? Of just like, we're trying to get those quick results, and so we're going to do whatever it takes to, but then you can't live that way.
Right. Nobody and you'll get less discouraged. You'll build your confidence because action precedes, you know, motivation. So action's going to create micro results, and the micro results are going to stack into confidence, and then the confidence will produce that motivation. And you won't have the motivation every day, but your confidence from follow through will also then give you determination and discipline, which is stronger than motivation. So doing the baby steps consistently will prove to yourself, I can do this. And then you add another baby step because you knew you did the other baby steps and you can do it. And so then you have more confidence that you can stick to what you're doing, as opposed to you're like, oh man, I'm really struggling with this 5 days a week of lifting and the 6 days of cardio and all the water and eating all the meals. Like, I don't know, you start talking yourself out of the fact that you can do this because it's too much, too quick. So the baby steps, you do have to create a plan. I do tell people though, if you are busy, which we all are.
I mean, if you could do it naturally, you would be already doing it.
Right. So you have to look at it on your calendar like you would any other new extracurricular your kid's doing, or any new extra task at work, or any new side hustle you've started. Like, it just has to be booked in and get realistic with where that can go, what variables there might be. Do you need someone for the kids? Are you going to do it with the kids? Are you going to work out from home? Are you going to go to a gym? Like flesh out how you plan to do it.
Accessible path.
And then just lay the groundwork and, then stick to it. And try, and again, you may have to pivot where it was at morning or evening, some of that you'll tweak, but give it a good go for, I say usually 4 weeks, because you won't, there's discomfort because it's new. It doesn't mean you can't do it and that it doesn't work there. So try something long enough that it can actually compound and work for you. Because a lot of people will mistake in that it's not going to work for them just because it's uncomfortable. But it's really just, getting through the old habits and creating the new ones. Not always that it won't work, but sometimes you realize it won't work, but you'll know you really gave it a go, and then you can try it somewhere else.
You have more data to change.
Exactly. Like our bodies are so cool and complex, and so, which hopefully will empower people to know, like, oh, it makes sense why I feel crazy, or why I feel, because some of that stuff and your ability to handle stressors, it's all kind of interrelated. Things just might not be releasing at the same time, or, you're depleted in a certain way. And so when you can kind of start getting a routine going, you'll feel more sane and feel better and get that. And then
your eating changes when you're rested, and your relationships change, which affects your emotional state, and your energy for exercise changes well. And it's all kind of interconnected. And so I would say for mental health, at least, if you were going to start somewhere, I would start with rest. And we always schedule rest, not sleep, because you can't control sleep, but you can control rest. But just thinking about, like, my body has to get onto a rhythm of squirting out chemicals and doing different processes that are on the unconscious level. And so it may take some weeks to really kind of, or even a month or more, to really kind of like guide your body back into, sleep rhythms. But the good news is, like, you've done it before, right? You were a baby once, and you slept and you napped, and you went to school and took naps and slept. And so, it's a place you've been before, and you can get there again. Yeah, that's awesome. I think that'll be super helpful for people. Yeah. Okay. Any last pieces of advice for listeners who are like, I'm hearing all of this. I know where to start, but like that first step to starting feels really far away. I mean, I think I would look at those different pillars, like you said, whether it's sleep, movement of some kind, or nutrition. And if you like super overwhelmed, just pick one. I like that. So if you feel like you've got a little more pep in your step for working on your water intake, or if you do really good on your water intake, then just kind of look at how many meals a day you're eating, or if you're not eating enough, if you're eating 1 meal a day, try to get in 2. And if you're doing plenty of meals a day, most of them aren't healthy, pick one to make a little healthier, and then, ride that train. So pick one area that you feel like you've got the most pep in your step to try to take on. And then look at your calendar, where would it plug in best? So if we're working with water, like, I have to have, because I don't like water, which is surprising for a lot of people being a child. Like, I hate water. And so, like, I have one of those water bottles that, like, has the time goals on it. I have mine right here. I have the time goals. And so I'm like, because I know that will help me. And I'll be able to keep track of it easier than like a bunch of water bottles like the one I brought today. I'll forget, how many are I on? Like, which one was that? Or was this my water bottle, or is that the kids? Like, I can't remember. So I usually set yourself up for success. How do you work best? Do you need one of those, or do you like the Nalgene, or do you like those, big jug things? Cans, and then you think about, okay, how much is in that? How many of those do I need per day? Okay. Do you need to check boxes? Are you someone that can check boxes, or do you just mentally do it? Do you need an app? Do you love your phone? Do you need an app? Right. So just think about the things that for your motivation type would work well for you, and then look at your day and say, okay, that's where it's going to be, and then you're going to do it for 4 weeks and check your boxes. And also think about too, at that time where you're taking your planning period, are you someone that likes accountability, like you said? So then if you need accountability, reach out to some friends, tell them your goal, or do you want a trainer, or what kind of level of motivation do you want, or like accountability do you want to seek out? And decide that, and then just start. You just have to start. And again, like you said, you're aiming for just consistency, not perfection. So you're expecting, okay, so there's 7 days in this week, I've been doing zilch for water, I'm going to aim for nailing it 2 days, or what, pick your starting point and then do that. So just starting really small, keeping track of it, and when you're feeling empowered around that, then add
another layer to it. And again, if it's staying in the nutrition space for a while, you're better than you were yesterday. Like I always tell people, even if it's 1% better, you think about if you're 1% better each day, that's 7% per week. It really compounds into really magical things if you just think about it in the sense that we're just aiming to be better each day. Not perfect. We're just aiming to be better. And that helps people kind of break through that starting
it's
barrier.
so daunting at the beginning.
Yeah.
This was so fun. I feel like we could talk for 3 more hours about everything women's fitness and health and everything. But thank you I'm now thirsty. We've been talking about water so much. I now need some water. But thank you so much. I loved doing this collaboration with you today.
Thank you so much. So one thing I love to ask my guests at the end of my podcast is, what does living an abundant life mean to you? And if someone were to ask you how they could start to build an abundant life for themselves, what would you tell them?
I love that question. I think that for me, where I feel like I'm living the most abundantly is when I'm in a state of deep contentment. And I'm very relational. And so generally I'm there in that state of contentment the most when I feel really connected. So really connected with myself, my body, my family, my friends, my community. And so I think that's really when I feel like I'm thriving, is when I'm feeling connected in those areas. So I would say if someone who's watching or listening is like me, maybe taking a look and saying, okay, in the place that I feel the most connected in my life, is there one way I could enhance it this week? Or if that feels really fully, resourced, what's the next area of my life that has a little growth edge? And just doing one small thing, kind of to the topic of, what we've been discussing, of that idea of starting small and building. Is it water? Is it connecting with your sleep and your rest a little bit? Is that one person you haven't talked to in a while you can give a phone call or a text to? Just maybe one small way to reach out and to start building connection again. And that's kind of where I find myself thriving, is when I feel really like I'm maintaining all those areas of my life. Wow.
I love that. That's wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah. And thank you to everybody who joined us today. You're going to find this on both of our podcasts. So check out both spaces, and we'll see you next time. How Would You Rate Your Pain is a pop media production and is recorded at WaveLength Studios in downtown Chattanooga, Tennessee. Our set is designed by Mad Honey Rentals, graphic design provided by Josh Wilhem at JW Creates. Music is by Michael Crosa. This podcast is not intended to be taken as medical advice and should not take the place of regular therapy. If you have questions about your mental health, see a licensed clinical therapist. I'm Dr. Tiffany Bartell. Please follow us on Instagram and Facebook at How Would You Rate Your Pain. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you next week for another episode.